Hello guys, hello guys. Welcome to step 4 of your Python programming journey. We are all set to start. Can you type yes if I'm clearly audible? Okay. Just type yes if I'm audible. Okay. So before starting today's topics, I'd like to summarize what we discussed yesterday. So yesterday we saw that why we need to define constants in our program, what is the importance of defining why we need to define them. And after that, we saw different types of numbers. We have integers, we have floating point numbers, right? Then we saw what are the different types of operations that can be performed on those numbers. So we saw operators like addition, subtraction, multiplication. Then we saw float division, integer division, and then modulus and exponentiation operator, right? Also, we figured out the real world applications of these operators. And after that, we implemented the Euclidean distance formula for computing distance between 2 points on a Cartesian plane, right? I hope things are clear till that point. So let me share my screen so that I can discuss. I'll brief you about the content that we are going to discuss in today's session. Here it is. So first of all, we'll see why we need selection statements. We'll talk about selection statements in today's topic, and we'll see why we need selection statements. Why should our code decide whether the statements should be executed or not? What is the importance? So this session is going to be about the selection statements only. So we'll see why we need selection statements and what are different selection statements we have, right? Before that, I'll show you this piece of code. We all have seen this code where we have this radius and we use this radius to compute area. And after that, we printed the area. Now, suppose you see these line numbers. I'm representing these line numbers here. Okay. And this is the order of execution of these lines. So we can see line number 1 will be executed first, after that line number 2, then followed by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this is how the program or Python interpreter executes your program line by line, right? And we are sure we can say line number 8 will execute after line number 7. Or we can say if line number 7 will successfully execute, after that line number 8 will definitely execute. I hope you're getting this, right? This is line by line execution or execution in a sequence, one after another. But you see, if in real world, you never plan things like this. Like if you have to plan, you never say that first I'll study and then I'll go out to play. You never say like this. You always plan things like first I'll study, and if I'm able to complete my homework, right, then I'll go out to play. So in real world, you will see that the task or the events actually depend on certain condition. Like here you see the second activity or second event, playing, going outside to play, depends on one condition, which is the completion of homework. If the homework is complete, then you will go out to play, right? So generally in real world, the events or task depends on certain condition. And if those conditions are fulfilled, then only the activities or events takes place, right? Now I'll show you the code that we wrote yesterday. So we have seen this code of computing the area, right? We have seen this code. Now if I'll try to run this code, we have already done it in previous sessions, but I'm trying to run it again over here. I'll type Python. The name of the file is area.py. So I'll type area.py. It is asking me to enter the radius. I'm giving 10 as the radius. See, it is computing area of the circle whose radius is 10. Now I run it again. This time I give radius as -10. And if I see, it is again giving me the area of a circle whose radius is minus 10. But practically, if you know, geometrically it is not possible to have a circle of negative or zero radius. You're getting this? But what our program is doing over here is, a program is taking radius as input, and after that it is computing the area for this inputted radius, right? What should I program? What should our program should have done is, it should have taken the radius as input. After that, it must check the radius. If radius is greater than 0 or if radius is positive, then only it should compute the area. All of you agree with this? So our program, what our current program is doing, it takes the radius as input and computes the area blindly, right? It does not check the radius. But what ideally it should do? Ideally, it should first check the radius, whether the inputted radius is greater than 0 or not. If it is greater than 0, then only it should compute the area. So if I want to make these changes, if I want to create a program like this, which actually checks the radius and then computes the area, I need to make certain changes in my program, right? So let me check, remove these lines. So first step is taking radius as input. So my program is taking radius as input, right? After that, I need to check whether radius is greater than 0. So Python provides me some if statement. I'll discuss in details how we use this if and what is the exact syntax, but I'm like telling you here. So we write if radius, which is inputted by user, is greater than 0. So we use radius, then greater sign, which you have already seen in mathematics, right? And then we are comparing it with 0, right? It should be greater than 0. If radius can't be equal to 0 or less than 0, right? So I'm comparing radius greater than 0, and then I put a colon over here. Now, why I'm putting this colon, I'll get back to this code once again. But before that, I need to explain you one thing. So here, suppose you are writing some English sentence like this. You might have seen those sentences like this. This is a normal English sentence which says the advantages are as follows. So this is a normal, I am assuming this is a normal English sentence, and it is saying that the advantages are as follows. Then it tells me the advantages. So suppose this is the first one, then the second advantage, and then I write down the third advantage, right? And after that, when I've written down all the advantages, I'm writing something else over here. So this, I'll start from new paragraph. This is next paragraph. This is how I write the sentences in English. Now you can see here that these three sentences, this one, and this one, right? These three sentences are quite indented, right? These are not starting from extreme left of the page, right? These are quite indented. Why we have made them indented? Why, when we write in English, why we have made them indented? Because we want to show them that these three sentences are the sub part of this above sentence or above paragraph, right? That's why we write this thing in English. We write them indented so that we can see that these are related these statements are related to this paragraph, or these statements are the part of this paragraph, right? So when I put a colon and I have those indented statements, I mean these statements are related to somehow related to this paragraph, right? But this paragraph, which is starting from extreme left, I can say is not related to this one, right? It cannot be a subpart of this one. And you also see that this indentation, when I'm writing it down, writing it slightly towards right side, right? This has improved the readability of the English also. So if I would have written something like this, The advantages are as follows, and I'll start the first one from here only. First one, second one, and third one. And then I have written this is next paragraph. So my next paragraph also starts from here. So this English will be less readable as compared to this English. I hope you're getting this. And I will never be able to figure out that what are the different sentences that are related to this top sentence. Okay. So I cannot distinguish between these three and this one. So this indentation helps me to tell whether what are the statements which are related to this top statements or above statement, right? So with the help of this, so this is the syntax of English that we generally follow. Okay. So now if I come to my Python program, now I want to compute the area only when radius is greater than 0. So I want to write some statements which are related to this if statement. So in Python also we follow the same thing. If we want to write some statements which are related to if statements, we need to provide them certain indentation, right? So when I'm using this atom editor and I'm typing enter after this colon, my cursor is automatically indented. If you are using some editor and your cursor is not indented, it comes to extreme left, you can simply press a tab and you can write down those um, statements or sentences which are related to your if statements, right? So the syntax is generally is you write if, then you give certain condition on which you want to do something, and then we put a colon. After that colon, we can write the related statements, the statements which are related to if. I hope you are getting this. Now, when radius is greater than 0, what I need to do? I need to compute area. So I say area equals to 3.14 into radius into radius, right? And I also want to print this. So I am printing area after computing. Area is, I'm printing the value of variable, right? And see, now after this, if statements. So these statements at line number 6 and 7, because they are indented statements, they are related to this if. They will only execute when this if statements wants, or if the condition if statement is true, right? Now if I write something, I write another print statement outside this if. You can see it is starting from extreme left, right? Program executed. So I have taken radius as input. Now I have checked whether radius is greater than 0 or not. Now if radius is greater than 0, then I am computing the area. Then only I am computing the area actually. And I'm printing that area. And this print statement is outside if, so it does not worry about the radius is greater than 0 or not. So now if I try to run this, I'll save this program and try to run this program, right? If I run this, it asks me to enter the radius. Now suppose I enter -10, negative radius. So what happens is, see, it says program executed. So this print statement has executed, but because I inputted the radius and radius was less than 0, so the statements related to if. So it first checked over here whether radius is greater than 0 or not. So radius was less than 0. So it does not execute these statements related to if. We generally call them the body of if as well, right? So body of if will only be executed when the condition of if is true, when here radius is greater than 0. Because I entered -10, so it was radius was less than 0. So these statements does not area was not computed and it was not printed. And what we printed only program executed. Now if I run it again, and I enter the radius 10. See, it has computed the area, printed the area, and again has printed this statement, which is program executed. So here at line number 5, when it found that the radius is positive, it was greater than 0, it actually executed the body of if where it has computed the area and printed the area. And after that, after coming out of this, it has printed the program executed thing. Okay. So now what we have done is we have written a program. So earlier we saw that lines were executing one after another. Now the normal lines will execute one after another, but at line number 5 we are deciding whether to execute line number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or not. So we are providing our code the flexibility to choose whether the further lines will be executed or not. So our code can make the selections this time. So by writing if statements, we have provided the selection ability in our program. Whether further lines should be executed or not depends on the condition. Okay, I hope you have got this. So now our program will compute the area only if the radius entered by user is greater than 0. Now see, in our program, what we did, we compared radius with value 0. So what we wanted radius to be greater than 0, and we have seen in mathematics that we have this greater than sign, right? So we can use this greater than sign to compare radius with 0. Now you see the if statement syntax was like this: if, then we provided certain condition, and then we wrote the colon, and then we had the body of if. Okay. So we can see that if radius is greater than 0, so when radius was greater than 0, was the condition. If this condition was favorable, then the body of if was executed, right? And if this condition is not favorable, if radius was less than 0, then body of if was not executed, right? So we have seen in if we provided certain condition, and if the condition was true, the body of if was executed, and if this condition was false or it was not true, then the body of if was not executed. We have seen this thing in our program, right? Now this condition in if is actually a comparison. What we are doing, we are comparing radius with value 0, right? So in if statement, whenever we write if statements, we generally write some comparison statements. Now we need to see there how many ways are there to compare things in Python, right? So in Python, we have different types of operators. We have less than equal to, greater than equal to, not equal to. So we have 6 different ways to compare things in Python, right? We have 6 different operators for this: less than equals to, greater than equals to, and not equals to, right? Let me take an example. Let me open the shell again. Try to use this comparison, or I'll try to use this comparison operators and I'll show you the results, right? See, suppose I take a variable radius equals to 5, right? Now I compare this. I write radius is less than 0. So what I'm saying, radius, the value of radius is 5. 5 is less than 0? No, it's not. So it is giving me, when I write radius less than 0, it is giving me false. When I write radius less than equals to 0, radius is neither less than or not equal to 0. So we are getting false again. Now if I check radius is greater than 0. So radius has value 5 and I'm saying 5 is greater than 0. So it gives me true. Okay. Now if I write radius is greater than equals to 0, because radius is greater than 0, so it will give me true again. Now if I write radius equals to 0, yani this is represented by double equal signs. So when we are comparing, we use double equals. When we are assigning, we use single equal, right? So when we write radius equals to 0, it means we are comparing radius with value 0. So radius has value 5, which is not equals to 0. So it is giving me false. Now if I write radius not equals to 0, so not equals to is represented by exclamation symbol and equal to symbol. So radius is not equal to 0. Radius has value 5, which is not equal to 0, right? So it will give me true. So you see, Whenever we are using these one of these six comparison operator, right, it always give me the value either true or false. So true with capital T and false is with capital F. Now, whenever we are comparing something, I'm getting the values like true and false. And these true false values are called actually Boolean values. We call them Boolean values, right? Boolean actually means two, and these possibilities, there are only two possibilities, either true or false, right? So these are generally called Boolean values. Now I'll show you something. We saw in if we were writing some condition, right? And if this condition was true, we can say we have seen that radius greater than 0. So what this radius greater than 0 was giving me? It was giving me either true or false. So when this radius greater than 0, we have seen these operators, right? Radius greater than 0, less than 0, it either returns me true or false. So if this radius greater than 0 gives me true or answer is true, then body of if will be executed. If the answer is false, then body of if will not be executed, right? I hope this makes sense. So we can say in the if statement, if the condition or the comparison results in true, then the statements related to if will be executed. That means the body of if will be executed. Otherwise, if the comparison results in false, then the body of if or the statements related to if will never be executed. I hope you're getting this. This makes sense. Okay. Now see, I have this bulb with me. This bulb can either be in on state or be in off state, right? So now I have a bulb which is now you know the bulb can be either in on state or in off state, right? Now what I need to do is I need to write a Python program so that it prints kindly switch off the bulb when the bulb is in on state, and it prints thank you when the bulb is in off state. So I need to write a Python program which will print kindly switch off the bulb when the bulb is on, and it will print thank you when the bulb is off, right? Now the question is, I'm sure that I need to use if statement and I need to compare something. But what comparison I will make? How will I compare in my if statement whether this bulb is in on state or in off state, right? How can I compare whether this bulb is lightning or not lightning, right? I know when we want to write certain statements, when we want to print certain statements depending on certain condition, I need to use if statement, right? That is clear to me. But the thing is, how will I compare the lightning of bulb? What what expression should I write, right? What comparison should I write over here, right? Because in if I need to give certain comparison. Let me help you. Take a variable whose name is bulb on, right? So this variable bulb on suppose has value false. Okay, so when this variable bulb on has value false, bulb on is false. You can read it like this: bulb on is false. Bulb on is false means bulb is in off state. And when I say bulb on is true, it means bulb is lightning. It is in on state. Okay. So now if I have a variable bulb on and it's true, with the help of its true and false, I can decide whether the bulb is in on state or in off state. So if bulb on is true, it means bulb is in on state. If bulb on is false, bulb is in off state. You're getting this? Now I can write in my if statement, if bulb on equals to true, then print kindly switch off the bulb. If bulb on equals to false, print. Can we do this? I hope this is making sense. We can uh, we can actually see the state of the bulb using this variable bulb on. If its value is false, I mean I will get to know that bulb is in off state. If the value of this bulb on variable is true, I will know that the bulb is in on state, right? Then I can use this value for comparison in if statements, right? Let me write down the code for this. Suppose I need to check if bulb on equals to true. And what I need to do? I need to print kindly switch off bulb, right? And we say if bulb on equals to false. I print thank you. Now initially let me set the bulb on to. So now we have set the bulb on to false. That means bulb is in off state. So which statement should be printed? The second one. When the bulb is in off state, I should see thank you on my screen. Let me save this program and try to run this program. Demo.py. You see, because bulb on is false, that means bulb is in off state. And now I can say bulb on is false means I need to print thank you. So this, if this condition will be false and this condition will be true, right? And when this condition is true, it will print thank you. I hope this makes sense. Okay. Now just have a look at this variable bulb. This bulb variable can have only two values, either true or false. Can this bulb variable have any other value? It can either be true or it can be false, right? When the bulb is in on state, it will have value for true. When the bulb is in off state, it will have value false. It cannot have any other value, right? So when we have variables which can have only two values, true or false, or when we have a variable which can have only Boolean values. So these types of variables are called Boolean variables. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. So now we have created a Boolean types of variable. So we have seen the variable that stored number, we have seen the variable that stored strings, right? Now we have seen a variable that can has a Boolean values, and these types of variables are called Boolean variable. I'll show you the importance of these Boolean variables, why these variables are important. See, here we are saying if bulb equals to true. And we also know that in if we write the expressions, we write down the expressions which should result either in true or in false, right? So when I say bulb equals to true, this will either be true or is going to be false. So if the value of bulb is true, this statement will become true. If the bulb is false, the value of bulb is false, this statement will, if this comparison will evaluate to false. So we know that this variable bulb can have only two values, either true or false. So instead of writing bulb equals to true, this bulb is a Boolean variable, right? It will have either value true or false. I can simply write if bulb. So we can replace the comparison with the Boolean comparison statements with the help of Boolean variable, because this Boolean variable will also have value true or false, right? So instead of writing bulb equals to true, if I write bulb, if bulb will have value true, so this will evaluate to true, which is required by if. If wants some statements which should give me true or false. So if bulb has value true, so this statement will be true, and I'll print kindly switch off the bulb, right? So I can instead of writing bulb equals to true, I can simply write bulb here, right? So now if you'll see, and as I make it to true, bulb equals to true, and here I'm saying if bulb, that means if bulb has value, so if bulb has value true, this will become true if true, and then it will print kindly switch off the lights. Now if I run this, you'll see kindly switch off the lights because bulb is on in on state. So we have seen the Boolean variables. We can use Boolean variables instead of comparison operations. So in if statements, we can have comparison operations and also we can have Boolean variables, right? I hope this makes sense. Now it's time to code. So it says we need to write a program which will prompt the user to enter an integer. And if the number is multiple of 5, the program displays the result high 5. If the number is divisible by 2, the program displays the results high even. Okay, so it's very simple, right? I need to check. What I need to do is, if program is multiple of 5 and number is divisible by 2, you see these two. If the number is multiple of 5 and if the number is divisible by 2, the multiple of x or divisibility by x means same thing, right? So if I have 6, 6 is a multiple of 2, right? And 6 is also divisible by 2. So they are same thing, right? So we need to check if the number is divisible by 5 or divisible by 2. If it is divisible by 5, we'll print high 5. If it is divisible by 2, we'll print high even, right? So let me open up the editor, create new file. Suppose it is high5.py. I'm creating. Now, first we'll write down these steps in the form of comments only. Okay. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to prompt user to enter the number. After that, we'll check the divisibility by 5. And after that, when it's done, I'll check the divisibility by 2. So this is what we need to do. If it is divisible by 5, I need to print high 5. If it is divisible by 2, I need to print high even. So first step is take the input. So if, because we want to take number as input, we need to use eval input. We want also give the message, enter the number, and we'll store it in some variable, which is suppose like num. I'll name my variable as num. Now I need to check the divisibility by 5. You can see here, if any number x is divisible by 5, right? I must say when I divide this number by 5, the remainder should be 0. Then only this number x will be divisible by 5. Okay. When on dividing 5, the remainder is 0. So I can write it like this: if x mod 5 equals to 0, right? So if number is divisible by 5, its remainder on dividing by 5 should be 0. So we'll compare this thing over here. If num mod 5, number is divisible by 5, its remainder has to be 0. And I need to print by 5. Now if number is divisible by 2, so I write if num mod 2. Again, if it is divisible, remainder has to be 0. If it is remainder is equals to 0, I'll print I even. Program is complete. I need to run the program. Let me save it and try to run it. Enter the number. Suppose I entered 10. Oh, sorry. Suppose I entered 25. Okay. It is giving me high 5. Now I can run again. I entered 12. It is giving me high even because it is multiple of 2. Now if I enter 10, which is multiple of 5 and 2, so it should print both. So it prints high 5 as well as high even. Can you see? So program is working perfectly fine. So this is done. We need to write another program, right? So this says, okay, program that prompts the user to enter an integer. If the number is even, print even number. If the number is odd, print odd number. Okay, so again we need to check. So even number is the number which is divisible by 2. I think you get this. So if the number is divisible by 2, so here we need to check the divisibility by 2, right? So what I need to do, again I'll open the editor and try to write the code for this. Create a new file, evenodd.py. The name of the file is evenodd.py. Okay. Again, I'll write down the steps in the form of comments. First, we'll prompt the user to enter the number and we'll check for even. Then I'll need to check for odd. So I'll check for even and I'll check for odd. So I know if it is even, it has to be divisible by 2. If it is odd, it has to be it should not be divisible by 2, right? So again, needs to use eval input for this. Eval input, I'll enter the number, then store it in a variable num. I need to check for even. Even is when if this num is divisible by 2. That means num mod 2 equals to 0. So if this number is divisible, I'll print even number. If num mod 2 not equals to 0, right? And I say it's odd number. Is complete. We have taken the number as input, then we have checked the divisibility for even number, then we have checked that, and we also have checked the divisibility for odd number. Now if I run this program, you see Python even odd.py. Suppose let me enter 13, it is giving me odd number. Let me enter 26, it is giving me even number. The program is working fine, right? Now I'll show you. This is the code that we have written, right? Num, we have taken num, we have checked for even number, and then we have checked for odd number. I hope this makes sense. Okay. Now, let me help you to visualize this code, how this code is executing in the memory, right? Let's check this thing. You see, this program is asking me to enter the number. Suppose I entered 26 over here. 26 is an even number. It should print even, right? Let's see. So I have a num. You can see on the right side, I have a num variable whose value is 26. Okay. Now the cursor is at line number 5. So Python interpreter is executing at line number 5. Here it is checking if num mod 2 equals to 0. It says 26 mod 2 equals to 0 because num is 26. So I'll check, it will check 26 mod 2 equals to, so because 26 is an even number, so this condition is true. So the cursor will move to line number 6, that is body of if. So if I click next, you will see the cursor has moved to line number 6 because this condition is true. 26 is divisible by 2. Okay, so at line number 6 I need to print even number. So when I click next, it has printed even number. Now you see our task is done, right? What I wanted is my program should take the input, it should check the divisibility, and it should print even or odd depending on the number. So it has checked the number is divisible by 2 and it has printed even number. My program should be terminated now. But what you can observe is my program has not terminated. Now the cursor has moved to line number 9. Here it is checking for this number for if it is odd or not. So if my number is even, it can never be odd, right? But still it is checking if num mod 2 is not equals to 0 because this condition is going to be false. Now the program will terminate. You see what is happening is, I'll show you here. So when I give number 26 as input, it is first checking for even number and it found that yes, it is even, it has printed even, but still it is checking for odd number, which should not be there. So my program is making two checks for every number, right? So if I will give even number, again it will make two checks, right? And if I'll give odd number as input, again it will make two checks, first one and the second one. For odd numbers, this first check will be, right, the redundant check. I don't need to check. This condition will be always be false for the even for the odd numbers, right? The first condition. So if you'll run this program 100 times, it will work perfectly for every number. But behind the scene, what it is doing, it is making two checks to determine whether the number is even or odd. We are going to improve this, but before that, you need to tell me one thing. If I say X is even or odd, how will you tell me? What will be the your way of telling me, right? Will you tell me this? If it is divisible by 2, it's even. If it's not divisible by 2, it's odd, right? So if I ask you X is even or odd, so will you tell me like this? If it's divisible by 2, it's even. If it's not divisible by 2, it's odd. Or you will say something like this. If it is divisible by 2, it's even. Otherwise, it's odd. Which one will be your definition when I'll asking you, tell me whether X is even or odd? See, both the definitions are correct. No one is wrong. But the second one is more efficient than the first one. I'll show you how. See, in first case, what we are doing is we are given number X. We are checking whether it's even or not. And then we are checking it's odd or not, right? In second case, in second definition, what we are doing is we are checking whether X is even or not. If it is true, we print it's even. And if in case X is not even, so we are saying it's odd. So in first case, we are making two checks. If X is even or not, then X is odd or not. But in second case, we are just checking X is even or not. If it is even, we are printing even. Otherwise, we print odd. We don't worry about it. We don't make any check to uh, verify whether it's odd or not. If it is not even, we'll say it is going to be odd, right? Now you see, we had only two possibilities. Any number, it will be even or it will be odd. So we had only two possibilities. So in case when we have only two possibilities, Python gives me if-else statements, right? So we can read it in English like this. If this condition is true, then execute this, else execute this, or otherwise execute this, right? So I'll make the changes in my program with the help of if-else statements. Now I'll replace this thing, the second check condition. I'll remove this second condition. I won't be checking it again, and I simply write else. So you can read it, if num mod 2, num is divisible by 2, print even number, else print odd number, right? So now if I'll run my program, now if I give number 13, it is giving me odd number. Again, if I run this and enter 26, it is giving me even number. So you see, there is nothing is there is no impact on the output of the program. Output of program is same, but this time we have written better program using if-else statements rather than two if statements. So if-else statements you can generally use when you have only two path of execution. You have only two possible options, right? Here the number is going to be even or it's going to be odd. So we have used if-else statements, right? I hope this makes sense. Okay. Now we'll move to another thing. We have seen this Cartesian plane yesterday, right? So we have seen this Cartesian plane has x-axis and y-axis. Now I need to draw a circle on this Cartesian plane. What all things I need, right? To draw a circle on this plane, what do I need? First thing that I need is a center. So we should know the center of circle, because center of circle is a point. So let it, the point will be, we know that the address of point is determined in the terms of x coordinate and y coordinate. So suppose I have a center at 2 comma 1. So this is going to be my center of the circle, right? I hope you got this. And second thing that I need to draw a circle on this Cartesian plane is the radius. So if I know the radius, suppose radius here is 2. So what will I do? I'll draw a straight line from the center of 2 units like this. And then I'll draw a circle. Okay. So I can say if I know the center and the radius, I can draw a circle on the Cartesian plane, right? You just give me center and the radius. I will be able to draw the circle on the plane, right? I hope you got this. Okay. So let's take another example where center is suppose 0, 0 and radius is 5. So what we'll do? I'll first mark the center. Center is at 0, 0. So this will be my center. Then radius is 5. So I'll draw a straight line of 5 units and will draw a circle corresponding to it, right? So now we know that how we can draw a circle on Cartesian plane using the center and the radius. If we have these two things, you will be able to draw the circle on Cartesian plane. Now suppose you are given this circle, right, with radius 2 and center at 2 comma 1, and I'm randomly selecting some point. Okay, so I just pick this one. Okay, so this point has coordinates 4 comma 4. You can verify this coordinate which I selected has coordinates. So I'll draw a line, straight line here. It will cut at 4. So x coordinate is 4, right? And I'll draw a right line over here. It cut y axis at 4. So y coordinate is also 4. So this point has coordinate 4 comma 4. Now can you tell me whether this point lies inside the circle or outside the circle? Can you tell? Definitely it lies outside the circle because you can see easily, right? You can see that the point is lying outside the circle. Okay. Let's take another case. Now I select this point. Okay. So this is again random point which I selected. This point is 3 comma 2. Can you tell whether this point lies inside the circle or outside the circle? Any idea? It is obvious, right? We can see this point is inside the circle. Okay. Now what I do, I am removing this drawing from here. I'm just giving you these values. I have given you the center, I have given you the radius, and I have given you the coordinates of some point 3 comma 2. Now can you tell me whether this point P lies inside this circle, will lie inside the circle or not? Whose center will be at 2 comma 1 and radius is 2? There are no drawings, no imagination, right? You have these 3 values with you. Can you tell with the help of these 3 values whether this point P will lie inside the circle or not? Can you tell? Point P will be inside or outside? Okay, let me try to help you this. Okay, when we only know the values, then how can we tell? Because by seeing at the image, by locating on graph paper, right, we can actually tell the point is lying outside or inside, right? But by just seeing at the values, the C center is 2 comma 1, radius is 2, point is 3 comma 2. Now tell me whether the point lies inside or outside. Okay, so you can actually now just look at this image. Here I have the center of circle at C, okay, which is at suppose 2 comma, which is at 2 comma 1. Don't suppose, it is at 2 comma 1, and radius of circle is 2. Okay, now if I say point Q is there, whose coordinate is 3 comma 4. If I need to compute distance between C and Q, what will I do? I'll draw a straight line, right? And I can actually compute the distance using Euclidean distance formula that we have. But one thing to notice over here is the length of this line will always be greater than radius, right? Now look at another point P. See, the distance between P and C will be the line between C and P, the straight line which is connecting C and P. And the length of this line will always be less than the radius of this circle, right? So you might have got idea that when the distance between the point and the center is greater than radius, as in this case, right? See, in this case, the distance between this point and this point is greater than radius. This is radius and this distance is going to radius. So if point lies here, 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 the distance is always going to be greater than radius. But when the point lies inside, the distance between point and center, right, is going to be less than radius. Okay, so what we need to do, if I am given these values, I'll simply take the 2 points, the center of the circle and the point which is given to me, and I'll compute the distance between these 2 points using the Euclidean distance formula. Then I'll compare this distance with the radius of the circle. So the distance between 2 points and the radius. If distance is greater than radius, I can easily say the point is outside the circle. Else, I will say the point is inside the circle. If distance is not greater than, it is going to be less than or equals to, right? In that case, I will say the point is inside the circle. I hope you got the idea. You are given center, you are given radius, and you are given the coordinates of some point. And after with these values, you can use this mathematical formula to determine whether the point is outside or inside. Now, we need to write the code for the same. Okay, so it says the program will prompt the user to enter coordinates of center of circle, radius of circle, and coordinates of point. And our program should apply that mathematics and should be able to tell whether the point lies inside the circle or outside the circle. Again, we'll open up the editor, right? We'll create a new file, suppose point in circle, point in circle.py. Okay. Now, first thing that we need to do is we need to write down things in the form of comments. The first thing is prompt user to enter center of circle. After that, we'll ask user radius of circle. Then ask user to enter the coordinates of point whose location we have to tell. Okay. After that, we'll compute distance between center and point. And then we'll compare distance with radius. So these are the steps that we need to follow. So first thing that we need to do is the coordinates of center of circle. So we have seen in the last session how we take the input x1 comma y1. So we can use simultaneous assignments like this, x1 comma y1 eval input. So we need multiple values separated by comma. So we'll suggest him enter center coordinates x1 comma y1. Okay, then we need to input the radius. So we write radius equals to eval. It is going to be a number, so we use eval input piece of circle. After that, we need to prompt the distance. Okay, so we use x2 comma y2 to store the point coordinates. The point coordinates x2 comma y2. After that, we'll compute the distance. The distance, you know the formula, x2 minus x1 square plus y2 minus y1 square. So how do we do it? x2 minus x1 a whole square, so raised to the power 2 plus y2 minus y1 I take care of the spaces. You should also take care of the spaces while writing code because it makes your program more readable. whole to the power 0.5, that is square root. X2 minus x1 square is computed, y2 minus y1 square is computed, and then we have computed the square root, and we are storing it in a variable distance. Distance equals to this value. Now we need to compare this distance, right? Compare this distance with radius. So we say if distance is greater than radius, what I need to do? I need to print outside the circle. Else, you need to print inside the circle. So our program, I think, is complete. We have asked user to input the three values: the center coordinates, the radius coordinate, the radius value, and the point coordinates. Okay. After we had computed the distance, then we have checked compared the distance with radius. If distance is greater than radius, I am saying the point is outside the circle. Else, I'm saying print point is inside the circle. I'll save the program and try to run this. Okay. So I run this. Let's see this example only. We have center at 2, 1, radius 2, and the point we'll check for 0.32 first. Okay? So we have center at 2, 1, radius is 2, and let's check for 3, 2, 3, 2. It is saying inside the circle. Here also in image we can see the point 3, 2 is inside the circle. Now we'll check for 3, 4, right? What our program says, right? So center coordinates 2, 1, radius is 2. Now I'll check 3, 4. It is saying outside the circle. So our program is working correctly. It is telling me that this point is outside and this point is inside. So by just taking those three values, it is able to compute and apply that logic. And after applying that logic, the program is able to tell whether the point is inside or outside. Okay. I hope this makes sense. There is no problem till now. We have seen this. We have written this program as well. Now see, we have talked about this point 3, 2. We have talked about this point 3, 4. We saw that these programs are inside or outside. Okay. Now, what about this point? R2, 3. You see, what about this point 2, 3? This point, let me check. So we have 2, 1, right? Radius is 2 and the point is 2, 3. It says it is inside the circle. For me, it is lying on the circle. Okay. So before that, I have a quiz for you. You can go to the voting link in the description, and you need to tell me if I have a circle with center 0, 0, radius 3, and the point has coordinates 3, 3. Point P will lie inside the circle or outside the circle. Center of circle is 0, 0, radius is 3, and point is at 3, 3. You can go through the voting link in the description and you can submit your solutions over there. Submit fast. Okay, people are saying inside the circle, point is at 3, 3, circle is at 0, 0, origin, center, and radius is 3. You can go through the voting link in the description and can submit your solutions. Okay, most of the people are saying it's inside the circle. Many are saying it's outside the circle. We need to verify. We need to verify, right? Okay, now it's great, great, great. Okay. Let me just verify this. Okay. So most of the people, like half of the people are saying inside, half of the people are saying outside. But I can assure you, those who are saying inside, they have not verified it, right? They have not verified it. If you are able to visualize this thing, okay, if you are able to visualize this thing, I can tell you, suppose this is the center, one, two, three, one, two, three, right? So the circle will be something like this, zero, zero, circle will be something like this, right? And point 33 will lie somewhere here. So this is my assumption, right? This is my simple logic that I'm circle will go through like this, and the point will lie here. So point will be outside. But I'll verify this thing with my program first, then only I'll tell you. So we say, let me run the program. We have center at 0, comma 0. We have radius 3, and the point coordinates are 3, comma 3. And see, it is going to be outside the circle. So we have verified, and logically also we saw that it is going to be outside only. Okay, so we are talking about this point 2, comma 3. And when we run this program, our program was saying this 2, comma 3 will lie inside the circle. Now you see this condition is true. This condition is fine when we are talking about two cases only. When we say that whether the point can lie inside or the point can lie outside. In this case, you can see the point is lying inside, right? But if I tell you I need to consider all the three cases, I just don't want two cases only. I want three cases. I want to consider this case also when the point lies on the circle as well. How can I consider this case in my program, right? So I have seen, uh, I want all the three cases to be handled. I have three possibilities here. The points can lie inside, point can lie outside, and point can lie on the circle as well. But my current program is telling me whether it's inside or outside. So how can I handle this situation in my program? Before understanding this, we can do this, right? It is very easy. But before that, we need to understand something. We need to understand that if we wanted a single line of execution, whether we want to execute or don't want to execute, in that case, we use simple if statement, right? But when we talked about when we had two possibilities, we had this flow, otherwise this flow, right? We used if-else statements, right? Now, when we have more than two possibilities, so whenever you have only single option, you will use simple if statement. When you have multiple options, you can use, when you have two options, you can use if-else statement. When you have more than two options, in that case, Python provides you if-elif statements, right? So there are multiple ways, multiple directions in which you can execute your code. So we can also read it as if else if statements, where first the if condition will be checked. If that condition is true, if that condition is true, then the body of if will be executed. Otherwise, the second condition will be checked. If that second condition is true, then the body of this elif will be executed. If not, then the third condition will be checked. And then we have else, which is the default case. When all the first, second, and third condition and all the intermediate conditions are false, right? Then the else block will be executed, right? That will be the default case. Okay. So in our case, we saw we have three possibilities. We will write if, then some condition will write. Then we have second condition where we'll see point is inside the circle or not. And then in else case, we'll see the default case will say the point is on the circle. So we have three possibilities. We will have if, elif, and else. This structure. I'll show you how we are going to do this, but we can see. So when we have three possibilities, when we had two possibilities, we use if else, right? Now we have three possibilities. We are going to if, elif, and else structure. So in if, we'll put some condition, and if that condition is true, we'll say the point is outside. In elif, we put another condition. If that condition is true, we'll say point is inside. And if both the condition will be false, we'll put in else that point is on the circle. Okay. Now in our case, when we are comparing distance with radius, there are three possibilities only. Distance can be greater than radius, distance can be less than radius, or distance can be equal to radius. I hope you're getting this. Distance can be greater than radius, distance can be less than radius, or distance can be equal to radius. When you are comparing distance with radius, these are the three possibilities, right? Now you see, if distance is greater than radius, so we know if distance is greater than radius, point will lie outside the circle. So I put this condition, this comparison in my if statement. Now, if distance was less than radius, I already always know when distance is less than radius, distance between point and center is less than radius, then we say inside the circle. So I put this condition over here. Now, when distance is not greater than, not less than, it is going to be equal to radius, which is will be our else case, the default case. So in else, we'll print on the circle. You're getting this? I hope you might got the idea. So when you have more than two possibilities, you are going to use if-else if statement, and we have seen we have three possibilities here. Either distance can be greater than, distance can be less, or distance is equal to. So we have used if-elif-else statements. If distance is greater than, we'll print outside. Elif distance is less than, we'll print inside. Else we'll print on the circle. So I'll make these changes in my program to handle this. Now you see, I'll simply say if distance is greater than radius, I am printing outside the circle. Now I put elif condition over here. Elif distance is less than radius. Okay. So I print inside the circle. Now I have else. When none of the two conditions will be, above two conditions will be true, then I can say point is on the circle. Okay, so I've written this code. I have made three possible conditions. I have reflected the three possible conditions in my if-else statement. Now I'll try to run this. Let's see. First point was, so our circle is at 2 comma 1, the center of circle is at 2 comma 1, radius is 2. The first point was 3 comma 2, which was inside the circle, so it is printing inside. Next, if I run, enter the coordinates 2 comma 1, the radius of the circle was 2, and the next point was 3 comma 4, in which case it printed outside. And now 2 comma 1, and we have radius 2, and the point was 4 comma 3, I think 2 comma 3, right? So we write 2 comma 3 over, fine, 2 comma 3, right? Now you see it is printing on the circle. So we have handled all the three cases. So if you have more than three cases, you can increase the structure of if-else. So you can have more if-elif statements over there. So there will be one if, multiple elif, then last else statement. I hope you're getting this. Now you just need to tell me again. I opened the, you can vote over there. Number of elif statements if there are total 4 possibilities. So how many elif statements will be there when there are 4 possibilities? You need to submit your solutions. You need either 1, 2, 3, or 4. How many elif statements will be there? You can go to the voting link in the description and can submit your solutions over there. How many elif statements will be there when I have 4 possibilities? Okay, most of the people are saying 2. It's correct, right? Because when we have 4 possibilities, we'll use if, elif, and then else statement. So we have 4 conditions. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Let me close voting for this. Okay. So today we talked about why we need the selections criteria in our code, then how we can do it using if statements, then why we don't need multiple if statements, why we should not use multiple if statements. And then we saw how we can use if statements, if else statements, how if else statements are better than multiple if statements, and if you have more than two possibilities, how you are going to use if else elif statements in Python. So we have talked about these, right? I hope this session has been fruitful for you. You have got the idea, and in the next session we will be discussing about what we say, the loops in Python. So we'll see what are different types of loops, why we need loops, and how we can use loops, and what are the different types of loops that we can use in Python. And then we'll see certain problems that can be solved with the help of loops very easily. So I hope this session is useful for you. Any feedbacks, if you want to give, you can give your comments. We can take 2 minutes or 3 minutes, although we have exceeded. If you have any comments, you can mention over here. Any feedback, any query regarding this session? Okay. So you got all this? Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. See you on next Tuesday then.